means that you're going to load balance your home. What that means is you're going to kind of get rid of some things that you definitely don't need right now. There's a reason for this too, because you're also going to be charging your battery, right? So sometimes, and it depends on time of day and time of year and the like, sometimes you may be using the battery every night. You may be discharging that home battery. So what you take that sunlight, you store it in the battery, and then later on at night you discharge it. But when there's probability of a grid loss, we want to change that around. We want to charge that battery up, right? So now the system automatically charges the battery, and more than likely we're using power from the grid when we do that. And that's the reason why we sort of, shut a few things down. The other thing that the system is going to do is it's going to shut shades. It's going to change lighting. It's going to, picture being in Hawaii, right? We've got some clients in Hawaii that they've got storm shutters. Well, they have to, do stuff in order to get those things all shut down and whatnot. What if the home just did it because it can? And that's one of the things Adapt Energy does. By paying attention to weather, that's just one example of preparing the home for probability of a grid loss. But sometimes you're just preparing the home for a really serious storm. And in my case, literally last night, my battery was I was discharging. Battery was at around 72%, I think, and I didn't have to do anything. It just handled everything. Shades were actually open in this case, and so they shut. My lighting changed. We had all of our pathway lighting on automatically because if we have a grid loss, we just want to be able to make sure that we can walk around. There's just so much to it. I could go on and on. I think you guys get, there's a lot of neat things that can happen.
Well, and it's really hard to describe if you haven't been to Troy's house because Troy actually just uses his house like a laboratory for this sort of thing.
My poor family. but John knows all about that, man. He's got the same issue I do, man. He is in total beta mode all the time. So
it's awesome. It's awesome. But we were there, and you shut all the power off to your house just to show how quickly it flips over, to the battery and. Just how quickly that can all happen and how it knows exactly what to do and what mode to go into because you can set different scenes and different settings and, in this event, this is what will happen and that sort of thing. It's all just so customizable to be able to do exactly what you want at any given time.
Yeah, so touching on that, because you're right, my house is the lab. A lot of the things that I've done, I've programmed to make happen, right? I've literally gone in and had to sort of, we'll call it hard code, a lot of these things that I wanted to happen based on when I lost power or when there was severe weather. Part of the beauty of what we're talking about here and why this is so special is by virtue of what John and I have kind of gotten together and done here, there's no programming. Like you can seriously hit buttons on an iPad and define exactly what you want to have happen when a grid loss occurs or when severe weather happens or when there's a time of use window. That's something that gets into a little bit of the techie stuff, but time of use meaning like peak demand. Maybe you pay a lot more money for, things that 5 o'clock and above, like that's stuff that our system manages, right? And then you in Crestron Home can say, yeah, you know what? Make sure the EV cannot charge during that time of use window so I don't get killed. I had somebody say something to me in it was a Facebook post, and he said, well, gee, Troy, that's really exciting and cool, but our customers don't care about saving money. And so why do you do all this? Why is this important? And he's right. This type of clientele that has Crestron Home and Adapt Energy and this stuff at this level, right, John? They're not worried necessarily about saving money, but I guarantee you they want to have power when a grid goes down, and I guarantee you they want to have a system that self-manages the whole thing and they're hands off and they don't have to worry about anything. There's no there's no price that you can put on that, really.
Yeah, I'd say maximizing value with little or no downtime, right? That's really the goal, right?
Well said. Well said.
So last night, like you were talking about, we had storms across Dallas-Fort Worth. grid went down,
Yep.
lost power, which is, just kind of a weather alert type of situation. And so in this type of case, what would happen? I think we have the video that we can roll now just for the weather alert. So let's show that so that Troy can talk a little bit more just about how that weather alert works and that sort of thing. Can we roll that? And if not, I think that we should still kind of talk a little bit more about what that weather alert looks like and
or
that sort of thing.
we can even dive into the Crestron home setup and user interface stuff.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's exciting as well. I mean, one of the neat things, John, that I experienced on the backside of sort of the development of all this, right, is that it took me a minute to integrate. This is crazy because we've been in a custom programming environment as a company for so long, and because of the efforts that have already been handled, right? A minute, and I've added Adapt Energy to Crestron Home. Unreal. And now it's time to just go do all the fun stuff. What happens when a grid loss occurs? Well, we lower the shades and we turn this lights to this scene and anything you want.
Look, and that was the goal when we announced and launched the extensions portion of Crestron Home, right?
Right.
We didn't want our dealers, our end users, to be stuck waiting for us to do all of the heavy lifting, all of the work. So when we created the concept of extensions, it opened it up to companies like yours, Troy, who can go out and build these little plugins for Crestron Home. So it looks and works like the rest of the user interface, but you can add in cool and amazing new things like this.
All right, we're going to cut to the weather alert video, and we're going to stop talking for a second.
All right.
A great feature of Adapt Energy is our severe weather alerts. Now what these alerts do is allow either the homeowner or the home itself to know that there's severe weather in the area. When there is severe weather in the area, that's your higher probability of a power outage. Now, by tracking that, we know, or the home knows, that there's something happening that could potentially cause that power outage. What we do is, by watching that and managing it, we will load balance, meaning maybe shut off some things in order to allow the home to draw more power for charging the battery, or maybe even pre-cool the home. These are all energy automated things that Adapt Energy manages and does. We're going to do an actual test alert that's going to show you how the alerting works and the kind of options that you have. One thing that you will notice is that as we're load balancing, kind of adjusting some of the breakers, turning some things on and off, we're also going to be doing some things to the home automation system, like adjusting the shades and the lights. This allows us to sort of change the power profile of the home to prepare for a potential power outage. So with this test alert, I'm also going to get a text on my phone and have some options either on my phone or my iPad. These options allow me to ignore this alert. Maybe I don't feel like this is going to be that big of a deal. Or I just received my text that says Adapt Energy has detected a test alert in this case, and I can maybe choose protect my home. So by choosing to protect the home, we're going to go ahead and run that sequence, and the home will load balance and we'll start changing some of the energy profiles of the home. You'll see some breakers are going to turn off. You're going to see some lighting change, and the shades are also going to change as well. Now, once this alert ends, the home will return back to normal and everything will be just like it was before.
That's some incredible stuff right there, Troy, and just amazing that we get a chance to look at that. Let's talk grid loss and restore now real quick before we kind of move into
that's
the
a fun
Crestron
one.
home.
That's a real fun one. Let's watch that. I actually, when you guys see this, realize this is real. There's no faking of anything here. I want to be clear about that because people see it and they're like, really? Yeah, really. This is real.
A primary feature of Adapt Energy is the ability to monitor the grid power. So we want to know if there is a power outage that occurs because the Adapt Energy system is going to automate the energy profiles of the home in such a way that we're going to shut certain things off so that we make sure we don't overload the inverter of our home battery. And we're also going to potentially make some additional decisions to allow the battery to last as long as possible. Now, even though we have the ability to manually control circuit breakers, when a grid loss or power outage occurs, that is automated. So we're going to actually do a real power outage. We're going to shut power down to the house, and we're going to actually see what happens to some of the circuit breakers in the home. Now, not only are we going to see the circuit breakers change on the iPad, you're going to see changes to the lighting, you're going to see changes to the shades, and all of this is to help the home last as long on battery power as possible. So we keep the ambient temperature down by lowering the shades. We're also going to change the climate of the home by raising the set points a little bit, so we make sure that we're not using battery power to power the HVAC systems. And we're also going to shut down pool pumps and water heaters and things like that that we may not need, and that'll help make sure our battery lasts as long as possible. So here in a moment, you're going to see a grid loss, and you're going to see what happens to those breakers. So we have lost grid power. Adapt Energy has definitely recognized this, made all the changes to the energy profiles in the home, changed shades and lights and things like that. It's also given us 3 options here. We can turn most of our circuits on, turn on comfort circuits, or turn on the essentials only. In this case, I feel like this is probably not going to last very long, right? So I'm going to say just turn most circuits on. And by doing that, it'll make the decision based on how I've set that up. And I'm also going to go ahead and, as a part of that power profile, raise those shades back up so that I can get some heat into the home because it's fall and it's cold outside. Now, during this power loss, you can see that we're drawing nothing from the grid at all. Our solar production is really, really low, but just for a period of time until the microinverters or the solar inverters sort of wake back up. They actually will calm down and go to sleep for about 5 minutes during a grid loss or at the beginning of a grid loss. And they'll come back and you'll see the production start to increase there. So you can see that we're actually drawing almost all of our power right now from the battery itself. And we have a little bit of consumption, about 3,200 watts of consumption. Now, by simply going over to my breakers page, I can lower that even more if I'd like to. Maybe I want to shut off some additional loads to make sure that I have my battery last as long as possible. That's the reason why we allow for that dynamic control during a grid loss. Now, the grid will come back here in just a bit, and you'll see that the home is going to return back to exactly where it was. So a few things have happened during this grid loss. First, I've gotten a text from Adapt Energy to let me know that a grid loss has occurred. So if I wasn't home, I'd still know about it. Something else that's really special, because our consumption is so low and our production is higher than our consumption right now, it's kind of nice. We're not even having to use the battery to power the home, but the battery is actually powering the inverters for the solar. See, what most people don't know is if you don't have a home battery or some method to power the microinverters or the inverters for solar, you won't have solar power when you have a grid loss. In my case, I'm actually in great shape. In fact, my battery is charging while I'm in a grid loss from solar, which is really fantastic. Looking at our breakers here, we can also see that we've shut down quite a few things, but our solar is definitely on. We're also going to probably have a grid return here in a few seconds, and I want you to see what actually happens on the dashboard. You probably heard a noise. That's the battery returning back to the grid, and you'll notice that we've returned to grid power, and our breakers are going to start coming back on to bring us, or the home I should say, back onto the grid. But you can see here that we're now consuming a little bit of power from the grid. Our consumption has gone up because once we return to grid power, a few other things actually turned back on in the home. And that sort of brings us back to normal operation of the home.
Well, welcome back. That was an awesome look just at grid loss, grid restore, just awesome stuff. We're having fun here.
It is cool. To think that a home can, by itself, do all that stuff is really, really neat. There's a couple things I do want to touch on. First, you notice the user interface experience on the iPad and the iPhone. Really, really cool, fun stuff, custom programmed and all that. But that is not what we're actually going to be showing you here in a moment. This is about Crestron Home and that integration. So all that stuff that you saw, that was hours and hours and hours of programming to pull all that off. What you're about to see took a matter of 20 minutes, I think, was how long I spent basically recreating in Crestron Home what I did with what we call simple windows in Crestron land. And also there was one other thing you saw in there. You might have saw a black sort of box, right? And this like green halo in it. That was my Sonnen battery. And so one of our other great partners, Sonnen, makes the best on the market home battery technology. That's one of the batteries that we integrate with, that Adapt Energy integrates with. And later on, we're gonna see a little video clip from Blake. He did a little special thing for me. So yeah, man, without further ado, I would love to jump in to looking at how easy it is to set up Crestron Home and Adapt Energy together.
Let's rock and roll. Let's do this thing.
Sweet. So as you can see here, you actually have a driver's area. This is normal. But when you scroll down, you can now go to Energy Automation. Aha. And inside of there, you're going to see Adapt Energy. Once you click on that, you simply choose a room, and you can pick any room you want to put Adapt Energy in. Whole house is probably a good one. I think I chose office just because that's where I was physically sitting. And then simply hit the plus button, and you have now integrated Adapt Energy and into Crestron Home. I mean, John, seriously, like you were talking about, that's it, man.
And that's the beauty of what you did here, right? I mean, because Crestron Home is designed to be really simple, right? It's as simple as adding a wall dimmer or an Apple TV to your system, and you've just now added your Adapt Energy Management System. So yeah, it's just
incredible, incredible.
Job.
I think we'll move on next to more of the setup. I think I'm going to talk about scenes next. Yeah, let's do scenes. Let's roll that next video. So sort of the next step, in my opinion anyway, once you've got it sort of in and integrated that easily, is to set up some key scenes. So what do we want to have happen to our lighting and our shades and so on and so forth? So you're going to see how easy it is for me to add, and I give it a descriptive thing special, AE, right, for Adapt Energy, Grid Return, Lighting. So this is what we're going to have set up to do whatever we want to the lights, but this scene is going to get attached to some things in another area that we'll talk about. So we'll do the same thing for shade. So you can see we've already got a grid loss shade scene, but now we're going to do a grid return shade scene, right? And we get that done, and once you get that done, you would move on to climate and maybe pool, or maybe gates, or maybe, I mean, whatever you can think of that you want to have happen like during a grid loss, you can do. I mean, so starting with scenes makes a lot of sense. And this is all just beautiful Crestron Home simplicity. So we're finishing up our climate scene right now. And the other thing that's interesting about scenes that most people do know if they're doing Crestron Home, but I'll just throw it out there. Scenes can be sort of added at a room level or at the whole house level, or you've got a lot of sort of flexibility there. Which is kind of nice. Here you can see that that I'm actually, when the grid returns, I'm sort of keeping the current mode and setting the HVAC system back into run its normal schedule, which is pretty sweet. Hey, John, what do you think of this like so far? Like it's so cool to be able to do when the grid returns or when you lose power, like do a bunch of cool stuff.
Yeah, to execute a scene or a group of scenes or a quick action, it's just so intuitive, really well done.
Yeah, it turned out really well. I think the next thing I'm going to show here is going to be the customization of some of those actions that John just mentioned. So once you get those scenes in there, we now want to sort of attach those scenes to some of these, we'll call them adapt energy events, because that's really what they are. So you're going to see I'm going to go down to adapt energy, and here we go. We got grid loss, we got grid restore. You can see severe weather mode started, severe weather mode ended. There's power profiles, there's time of use. So here I'm going to say when a grid loss occurs, I'm going to go down to my whole house where I created my scenes, and I'm going to choose my grid loss climate scene and my lighting and my shades. And when the grid goes down, those three things just happen automatically. It's beautiful. Same thing with grid restore.
Troy, how long would that have taken you in the custom world?
Do I have to tell you, man? So yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think probably a few hours.
Yeah.
To get, I mean, look, if the scenes were already there and all that, yeah, you could maybe get it done in, I don't know, an hour or so, something like that. But in my opinion, it's even more about the fact you can do this on an iPad without having a programmer at all involved. And quite frankly, I think you could even give the customer some degree of control of what happens with some of these things once they're set up, which is pretty cool. So here you can see that I'm adding some quick actions directly to the room. We call this at the room level. And I'm using this to turn off the electric vehicle. Now, what I'm actually doing is I'm gonna set this quick action to control a single circuit breaker in the home, which is kind of neat when you think about it, because that's part of Adapt Energy. It controls the breakers directly. So we can actually tell the electric vehicle to stop charging and not allow that to happen with the press of a button. But hey, it's Crestron Home. You got scheduling. You got all kinds. You're going to see that here in a moment as well. So here you go. Turn on EV charger, and that button now becomes available at the office room level, so that I can turn that breaker on or off.
Incredible.
It really is. You know, and there's a checkbox down there that I didn't dive into this one, but enable. I think room actions is what it is. No, that's not what it is. It's enable time of day. That's what it is. It's enable time of day. Mm-hmm. And so you could actually have different things occur when that button is pressed based on what time of the day it is. I mean, you probably wouldn't be doing that at a breaker level, but I mean, the sky's sort of the limit when you start looking at how far you can take this and with what you have available at your fingertips. Hey, John, I've I spent like 20 minutes total, I think, setting all this up, and it was done, like working, ready to roll. And I'll tell you a funny story, because I have both systems, right? I got Crestron Home and I've got my traditional. I forgot to turn off the demand response stuff after I'd set this up, and at 5 o'clock, all of our breakers turned off. And my wife, I wasn't there. My wife called me. She's like, "Honey, we can't, like, none of the air conditioners are working, and we don't have hot water." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I know exactly what that is." It was because of my setup stuff that I was doing for this, but yeah, that was crazy. So here you see I'm adding another quick action, but this one is done for the energy profile. So this is going to give me direct access to an Adapt energy profile. And again, those can be set up to do whatever you want. Maybe the energy profile is to turn off the hot water heaters and the EV charger, and but also maybe it's going to change the lighting and change the shades and change the. See, when you start looking at Adapt Energy inside of Crestron Home, it becomes so much easier to think about the home from an energy perspective, right? Before, you kind of look at it a little bit more like what I guess you could call traditional home automation. This is energy automation, right? So pretty exciting.
Really exciting. It feels like just yesterday I was trying to teach my granddad how to use the remote, and now we have something that can control every stinking aspect of your house. Pretty amazing stuff.
And in a matter of minutes, it's pretty cool.
It's wild. It's wild. So you mentioned scheduling. Do you want to show us that next? What do you want to go to next as far as instructionals and teaching us a little bit more about the integration with Crestron Home?
Yeah, I mean, schedule's super important. Yeah, absolutely. I want to show that. Please. And one of the neat things about this is that John's seen some of the screenshots before, but he hasn't actually seen this, right? So this is exciting for me to be able to share that with him.
So,
or maybe not.
Well,
oh no, we got
we
it.
go.
We got it. Good. So yeah, next step in the sort of evolution or setting up of Adapt Energy and Crestron Home would be to dive into the actions and events. All right. So once we get those events handled or quick actions handled at the house level, what's neat is you're going to be able to see that now on the main menu of Crestron Home. And you'll notice I even put a 1, a 2, a 3, and a 4. Well, one of the cool things Crestron Home does is it actually pays attention to these quick actions in an alphabetical order. And so I wanted to make sure that this went in a certain order, and that's why I did the little 1, 2, 3, 4 thing. But what I'm doing is I'm saying I want these things to show up on the main menu. And you'll see that I'm actually setting up a quick action called Charge Battery. I mean, from a press of a button, no matter what my battery's doing, I can say charge up to 100%. Or the adverse, right? I can say, no, I want to use the battery power. And when you do that, you get to say how much you want to keep in reserve. So I just said I want to keep 10% of my battery in reserve. And what's cool about that, the battery, as soon as I press that button, the battery can start discharging, and it makes up the difference of maybe I don't have enough solar happening in that moment. I can use battery power instead or not. And a lot of these, I mean, these are really examples more than anything. I mean, John, why don't you touch on some of the things that you've done maybe in your home and where you see how this could maybe fit in with your Crestron Home system?
Yeah, well, look, to be honest with you, especially with last week's change in our daylight savings, I like using scheduled events based on sunrise and sunset and offsets from those, right? So especially when you're talking about energy, right? I can affect things just as the sun's coming up or not, or as it's going down. So I think there's so much flexibility here that it's really tough to just talk through. You really have to experience it, and I think these videos really help.
Yeah, I appreciate that a lot. And like I said earlier, there's I don't have the elevator pitch, brother. I just don't. Like there's so much that you can do, but once you show it to people, it becomes pretty clear that, again, sky's the limit. But there's some fundamental things about Adapt Energy working with Crestron Home that happen so easily and so quickly. And so, John, you mentioned the scheduling of things, and so since we've created some scenes already, and we've created some quick actions and things, we can actually now tie those to a schedule. And you can see what I did here was just Monday through Friday at 9 o'clock. That's when peak demand time ends, right? So my energy costs go down after 9 o'clock in this case. So I'm actually going to say, yeah, we can turn on most of the circuits at that point. But conversely, when we're turning peak demand on, again, Monday through Friday, because we get free weekends, right? 5 o'clock is when that happens. And instead of turning on comfort circuits, I'm just going to use the essentials only. Now, that can be also, it can be breakers, but it can be anything. Maybe we want to throw a scene at the lighting at a certain time of year even, which is something that I think is really cool about how you can manage energy. And you mentioned the daylight savings time thing. I mean, it's different for different times of the day, right? Your energy use and also the control you may need. Yeah, let's see. Oh, I'm doing pool pump now. So this one's going to be a direct connect to a breaker, right? So now we've got a schedule that is going to just turn off a breaker. You see how sort of granular you're going to get with this, or you can get with this. John, I think one of the things that's going to be exciting and fun is to see all the different creative ways that people use Adapt Energy in Crestron Home and the type of scenes and things that they come up with.
I think you're right. We try and model out all of these potential opportunities, and I'm always surprised at what some dealers are showing me what they're doing with this platform.
Yeah, I guess to think you know it all is pretty naive, and I like to say it like this: that we with what we've developed here are true to our name. I think because adapt, right? You need to be able to adapt not only to a lifestyle, but you've got to adapt to a project, what the home requires. There's so many things that go into this. And once you start looking at some of the other people in the industry, I'll say the energy industry, that do similar things, it's interesting the approach that they take, because they are literally taking they've built a square peg, right? That's what's happened. They've built a square peg, and they are trying to sell it, expecting that your round hole is going to work for them, and it's just not working out. What we did was we developed a platform, right, that can connect to a lot of different things and works with a lot of different things, and has an expandable future. One of the things about Adapt Energy as a base thing is it controls 16 breakers. It's really cool, right?
Yeah.
Well, John, I don't even know if I've ever told you this, but simply because of the architecture of Adapt Energy being on the Crestron platform, we can control up to 2,016 breakers.
That's amazing.
It's pretty cool. So yeah,
Wow.
I mean, bring me one of those, somebody. I'd love to do that. Yeah.
So, if you want to maximize the control and the information that you have, the crazy thing is that you can control all of this just from an iPad or a phone, right? And so I have both of those things on my person right now, and I can do just about anything that we're talking about. So I think that's what our final video is here today, is just talking through the iPhone and iPad app, right?
Yeah, in fact, if we could show that, I think it's video number 4, maybe labeled video number 4. So this is going to give you the actual look and feel of Adapt Energy inside of Crestron Home. So you remember earlier when we set up those at the home level quick actions, right? You saw those at the top, and then at the bottom you see Adapt Energy. You can select it, and look at all the great information that you get. It's quite awesome what you can see. Now let's talk about a little bit of that. So breakers, right? You have control and information. Maybe a little tough to see. I'm stretching my eyes a little bit, but you can see that there's actual information about how much power is being used by each one of those breakers, right? So yeah, there's those quick actions at the sort of house level. And I think I just pressed use battery powered. If you remember when we set that up earlier, well, what we're doing now is we said use the battery. So we just set that backup reserve down at the bottom to 10%. Wow. And of course that could be scheduled and it can be automated, but it's also really, really nice, like you were saying, to have it at your fingertips. John, what do you think of this so far? Like, I know you've seen screenshots, but like this is working, bro.
Yeah,
this is live.
So that's key, right? I mean, because it looks and works like the rest of the user interface, right? All those tiles, all those buttons, all those gauges look and work just like the rest of the experience inside of Crestron Home, and that's the beauty of what you guys have done there.
Yeah, creating consistency for the user it's pretty important, and especially when you're dealing with complicated type things. My wife said something to me. It's been a couple years now, but that really rings true every time we look at developing these types of things. And I show her all this technical, crazy, cool stuff, and she looks at me and says, "Yeah, that's great, man. But with this, all I want to know is, am I winning or losing?" Right? Like, am I winning or losing? That autonomy number that was up on the screen, I tried to speak fast enough to get to get it out before we left it, but that autonomy number tells us how much power we've sort of purchased and how much power we've generated. So you see that autonomy number was at 89%. Well, that means in the past 24 hours, I've only paid for 11% of my power. That's awesome. And it's partly because of management that Adapt Energy does, but it's also, because of the battery and solar, and being able to generate your own power and store it and use it when you want to. It's pretty cool to live the lifestyle that I've been living for the past, who knows how long, 3 years now. So right here, we just did turn on essentials only. Now, all that did is run a power profile. And look at the breakers that turned off.
Yeah.
One button. But again, totally can be automated. It can happen because the grid went down. It can happen because, I don't know, it's a certain time of day. I mean, you have so many options with these energy profiles. And it's kind of interesting because when you set it up in Crestron Home, you can even make a circle, if you will, when you think about it. You can use time to define the use of a profile, and the very selection of a profile can then make other decisions happen for the system based on how the energy is being used. That might be, oh, you know what? We do need to use the battery power right now, and it can be automated to do that. I think right now, yes. So you'll notice a little red dot down there. Severe weather has been detected. So we just got a weather alert. And that's what it looks like in Crestron Home. And then you get these options. Now this one's a test alert, right? But these options are for the homeowner. They can choose to accept that alert, meaning run the energy profile that's going to be perfect for setting us up for preparing for a grid loss. Or maybe, don't worry about it, I'm good. In my case, I did, set me up. So I shut down my EV charger, hot water heater, and pool pump. Again, load balancing, like we talked about earlier, and the like. And I think here in a moment, we're actually going to see a grid loss after the severe weather. There it is, right there. Boom, power outage.
Wow.
And in order to capture these guys, I had to do this for real. Like I had to go outside, shut down the power to my house. I mean, it was actually pretty cool.
So if this were real time, you'd be running back inside right now. To
Yeah,
get
absolutely.
Back in front of your
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, looking at this power outage, one of the things that I guess you can't see very well is you actually get a text message too for a lot of different things. And the home automatically handled all the shutting down of certain things. And then I get some additional options here if I want them. Those are presented to me as an end user. But the key being automated. It's just going to do what it's supposed to do. And then because of how the Crestron Home guys set it up, right, it's doing stuff to lights and shades and climate and pool and anything else that you can really think of.
So cool.
Which this really came in handy. I mean, back in February 2021 here in Texas, right?
Yeah, Snowmageddon, right?
Yeah, we don't get events like that too terribly often, but you were able to kind of navigate it and manage it using all of the different things we've already talked about, which just kind of goes to show that there's nowhere where this is not valuable or pertinent or...
Yeah, like I said earlier, I mean, try to put a price on living through something like that, you know? I had it calculated. John, I think you and I talked about this. I think I shared this with you, but I had it calculated that I could run on my bare essentials with my battery for 35 hours. And that was with no outside power coming in because of what I stored, right? That's a beautiful thing to be able to say. And so, this is not it's not a play on like saving money. That's not what we're doing here. I mean, this is a play on giving a homeowner the lifestyle that they deserve, that they're willing to pay for, and that we can support for them and now do quite easily because of this integration, right?
Peace of mind and comfort, yeah.
Yeah, totally.
It's a great point. Peace of mind. It's hard to put a price tag on convenience and peace of mind, like you guys have mentioned.
Yeah.
And we've also talked about the Sonnen battery, right? And we do have a message from Blake Ricchetta that he shared with us that we're going to play right now, just so that people can also hear the battery side of things as well, right?
Absolutely. Part of the heart in my home is a Sonnen battery. I mean, those things are they're intelligent, they're smart, they're also actually pretty small relative. Like, people don't understand like how large some of the batteries do need to be in order to provide power for a home. So it's actually, that was that black box that you saw earlier with that green halo. That was during a grid loss. So grid loss happens, green halo, you're all good. So yeah, let's see what Blake has to say for us.
Hello, my name is Blake Ricchetta, Chairman and CEO of the world leader in intelligent residential energy storage systems and virtual power plant technology, Sonnen. I am so proud to be a part of the Pantech Adapt Energy and Crestron home launch. For years, the Pantech team has been innovating a bridge between the home automation industry, an industry that I come from before I was in the energy industry, and one of the largest industries in the world, energy, and of course, that energy transition, which I currently reside. This bridge is something that has been needed for years, and there is no technology as powerful, as robust to unite the two industries as Pantech and Adapt Energy, which basically takes the intelligence of the CI channel and allows it to flourish within the vastly growing, fast energy transition movement. The entire energy footprint of a home can be managed through Adapt Energy, Crestron Home, and the harnessing and control of the solar that is produced in a modern, renewable energy-based, carbon-neutral home can be truly managed by the Sonnen battery, which works perfectly with Adapt Energy, and therefore, on the other side of that bridge, Crestron Home. Crestron is obviously the world leader in home automation. Sonnen is the world leader in intelligent residential energy storage. Together, through Adapt Energy, we can change the industry and the world. Sonnen's virtual power plant technology, which swarm controls thousands of batteries and makes it so that home batteries and home energy systems can replace power plants, is an advanced technology, one that can be pioneering and certainly disruptive to the entire energy industry. But we are missing a major link, and that is the control of home energy and loads. That is the interface with the smart home. And my friends, that is what Crestron Home has. And Adapt Energy truly manages and brings the two together. The potential is virtually limitless and is in the billions and maybe even trillions over the next several decades. Thanks so much, and I am so excited to see what happens as Adapt Energy pioneers and disrupts this industry, leads the paradigm shift, and brings Crestron and Sonnen together. Thank you.
Blake Ricchetta, the man over at Sonnen, giving us a little message there. That was awesome to hear from Blake. Guys, as we begin to wrap things up today, John, I want to start off with you and just kind of kick things over to you, just for any thoughts, anything that you want integrators or any of the people at Crestron to know kind of about this integration and what this means for everybody. But any final words, any kind of final thoughts that you want people to walk away with from this broadcast?
Well, look, to be honest, this is what we dreamt of years ago here. We whiteboarded what Crestron Home should and could be down the road, taking a hot new category in our channel and being able to deliver that in near record time for end users very easily. And Troy and the team at Adapt have done just that and executed on that. And that's really the goal of everything we're trying to do here. So congrats to Troy and team. This was just spectacular.
That's got to be cool to hear.
And
Troy?
that's awesome. Coming from him, and I don't know if you heard him say it, but he's been an integrator, our customer, if you will, for 25 years before he went to Crestron. And then, to hear that, man, thanks, brother. That's, fantastic. And we did do this in record time. I mean, from the time that you and I first got together, right? Like, and you called me, it's like, we got to do this. We got to do this. A couple, 2-3 months, and we're ready for prime time. That's fantastic. That's as a software effort goes, it's not always that easy, especially one that can do what this can do. So yeah, super pumped about what we've developed, and can't thank you enough, John. It's been great.
Spectacular. Great job.
Well, this has been a lot of fun. It's been extremely informative. We've had some good time here, just with the videos, with everything, getting a chance to kind of introduce you to what Adapt Energy can do when you pair it with Crestron Home. So this has been a really great time. I can't thank both of you enough for being here and for being a part of this. And hopefully we can do more like it in the future.
Oh, we definitely will, because there's going to be new features and new exciting things, and John will probably challenge me again with something else, and here we go. So yeah, thanks a lot, Tyler. Appreciate it. John, thanks a lot, buddy. I know your time's so valuable. It really means a lot that you're here.
My pleasure. Really, again, thank you for having me. Great job.
And everyone, like you just heard Troy say, there will be more features and more things coming in the future, so you'll just have to stay tuned, because we'll be back very soon to tell you more about those things as well. So stay tuned for that. But for this one here today, thank you so much to Troy Morgan and John Clancy for joining us. And thank you all out there for joining us here today as well. Stay tuned. We'll be back soon for more. But for this one, we're out.